Welcome to Incognito Islamic Productions. Along with the concept of dhimmi, the idea of jizya is also greatly misunderstood. Orientalists like Wellhausen and Becker have been in the lead to mislead people on these issues, and the missionary Islamophobes simply buy their blatant lies. Let's dig into it. What is jizya? Allah Almighty says in the Quran, the translation, until they pay jizya with their own hands while they are subdued. As to the words they are subdued, as Shafi'i, the Imam, explains that it means Islamic rulings are enforced on them. Classical Muslim lexicographer Raghib al-Isfahani, he writes about jizya, it's a tax that is levied on dhimmis, and it is so named because it is in return for the protection that they are guaranteed. The purpose of jizya. The purpose of this taxation is to make the non-Muslims support the government under which they are living and being protected from all sorts of aggression. In the prime time of Islamic civilization, if the Muslims could not protect the dhimmis, they did not levy jizya tax on them. Following examples testifies to this fact. In a treaty made by Khalid with some town in the neighborhood of Hira, he writes, if we protect you, then jizya is due to us. But if we do not, then it is not. After the Muslims had captured Hims, Emesa, and taken the jizya as agreed in the agreement signed when the Muslims entered the city, it was learnt that Roman Emperor Heraclius was advancing with a large army. Abu Ubaidah, may Allah be pleased with him, he said, who was a Muslim commander in the Syrian front, ordered all the dues taken as jizya to be returned to the peoples of the city. According to Beladori, the people of the city were told, we are not able to defend you anymore, and now you have complete authority over your matters. Al-Azadi, he narrates the same with the following wordings. We have returned your wealth back to you because we detest taking your wealth and then failing to protect your land. We are moving to another area and have called upon our brethren, and then we will fight our enemy. If Allah helps us defeat them, we shall fulfill our covenant with you, except that you yourselves do not like it then. Al-Baradhuri, he quotes the response of the people of Hims. Verily, your rule and justice is dearer to us than the tyranny and oppression in which we used to live. And Al-Azadi, he quotes their even more emphatic reaction to the Muslim way of dealings. They said, may Allah again make you ruler over us, and may God's curse be upon the Byzantines who used to rule over us. By the Lord, had it been they would have never returned us anything. Instead, they would have seized all they could from our possessions. Montesquieu also highlights how the Muslim treatment of masses were far better than what preceded them under the Byzantine Greeks. He writes, it was this excess of taxes that occasioned the prodigious facility with which the Mohammedans carried on conquests. Instead of a continual series of extortions devised by the subtle avarice of the Greek emperors, the people were subjected to a simple tribute, which was paid and collected with ease. Thus they were far happier in obeying a barbarous nation than a corrupt government, in which they suffered every inconvenience of loss, liberty, with all the horror of present slavery. However, mark his inherent hatred in the words barbarous nation and horror of present slavery, which does not fit into the historical account that he gives, but perhaps goes fine with his prejudice. It is also a compensation for exemption from any kind of military service. As Al-Alusi writes, it is so because otherwise, when required, it is obligatory upon every citizen of the state to help the state in war. In fact, this seems to be a more valid reason because it was not levied on women and the old, as they were not expected to give any operational military assistance. Sir Thomas Arnold, he writes, when any Christian people served in a Muslim army, they were exempted from the payment of this tax. Such was the case with the tribe of Al-Jurayjima, a Christian tribe in the neighborhood of Al-Antioch, who made peace with the Muslims, promising to be their allies and fight on their side in battle, on condition that they should not be called upon to pay jizya and should receive their proper share of the booty. When the Arab conquests were pushed to the north of Persia in 22 AH, a similar agreement was made with a frontier tribe, which was exempted from the payment of jizya in consideration of military service. We find similar instances of remission of jizya in the case of Christians who serve in the army or navy under the Turkish rule. For example, the inhabitants of Megaris, a community of Albanian Christians, were exempted from the payment of this tax on condition that they furnished a body of armed men to guard the passes over Mounts Cithrion and Gerania. The Christians who serve as pioneers of the advance guard of the Turkish army, repairing the roads and bridges, were likewise exempt from the tribute and received grants of land quit of all taxation. And the Christian inhabitants of Hydra paid no direct taxes to the Sultan, but furnished instead a contingent of 250 able-bodied seamen to the Turkish fleet, who were supported out of the local treasury. All are required to pay jizya. The jizya is only upon capable males. Imam Ibn Qayyim, he writes, there is no jizya on the kids, women, and the insane. This is the view of the four Imams. Ibn Mundhar, he said, I do not know anyone to have differed with them. Abu Muhammad ibn Qudama, he said in Al-Mughni, we do not know of any difference of opinion among the learned on this issue. And there is no jizya upon the aged, one suffering from chronic disease, the blind, and the patient who has no hope of recovery and has despised of his health, even if they have enough. One important incident quoted by Imam Abu Yusuf needs special mention. Umar ibn Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, he passed by the door of a people's dwelling. There was a beggar there saying, extremely old person with blind eyesight needs help. He, Umar, got hold of him from behind and asked, which community of people of the book you belong to? He said, I am a Jew. He asked, what brought you to this condition that I see? He said, the demand of jizya, the needs, and the old age. Umar got hold of his hand and brought him to his place and helped him little, and then called for the custodian of Baytul Mal and said, take a look at his suffering. By Allah, this is not justice on our part that we extract from them in their youth and leave them helpless in their old age. He exempted him from jizya and similarly the likes of him. Orientalist Thomas Arnold, he puts it as, this tax was to be levied only on able-bodied males and not on women or children. The people who were dependent for their livelihood on alms and the aged poor who were incapable of work were also specially exempted. As also the blind, the lame, the incurables, and the insane, unless they happen to be men of wealth. This same condition applied to priests and monks, who were exempt if dependent on the alms of the rich, but had to pay it if they were well-to-do and lived in comfort. The collectors of the jizya were particularly instructed to show leniency and refrain from all harsh treatment or the infliction or corporal punishment in case of non-payment. Some accuse that this is extra burden upon the minorities. This is a childish allegation. And let's analyze who has more monetary obligation in Islamic setup, a Muslim or a non-Muslim. Muslims pay zakat, which is 2.5% of the yearly savings. Non-Muslims are to pay a maximum of 48 dinars annually. Just like poor Muslims, non-Muslims are also not required to pay jizya. Muslim women are not exempt from zakat. Non-Muslim women are exempt from jizya. Zakat does not take away the military service that the state may ask for. Jizya frees one from all of that. Then how come jizya is considered a great burden? In fact, financially, Islam puts more burden on Muslim citizens of the state than on non-Muslims. Conclusion. Jizya is a small tax levied on the dhimmis in return for the protection that the Islamic State gives them without asking them for any military service that might be demanded of Muslim citizens. It is levied on able-bodied males only and is quite less than zakat, which is obligatory for every Muslim. Women, children, and the aged are exempted, and so are the poor and some other classes. Muslim history shows Muslims always stood for their commitments that gave them the right to demand jizya. As to the false assertions of the likes of Wellhausen and Becker about Muslims using jizya and other taxes as tools for winning prostitutes or using these as devices to plunder the wealth of the non-Muslims, then you see Dennett Jr.'s book, Conversion and the Poll Tax in Early Islam, is a wonderful rebuttal to that. And Allah knows best.